right off the bat, welcome, and thank you for being here, some of you from far away in trying travel times. As many of you know, we decided to have this workshop relatively recently, only about 2.5 months ago, and at the time, I remember thinking it could be difficult to get so many people here on such short notice, given teaching requirements and also the difficulty of travel during winter. And for a few days, I actually thought about canceling the workshop. And then I woke up one morning, I checked my email, and I saw a flood of emails from people wanting to come. And we had a success rate of about 90% for the acceptances of invited speakers. Then we had the opposite problem. So we had to cancel all the contributed talk slots. So I'm sorry for those of you who wanted to give a contributed talk. We ended up having only invited talks. We have something like 30 invited talks. And ended up having over 200 registrants as of this morning. One other thing we did was we extended the time from 2 days to 3 days. I originally wanted to start around noon on Wednesday to allow time for travel and then end on Friday at noon, but we stretched that out, realizing that people would come on certain days and not be here on other days, and especially for people traveling from far away. They would probably, the biggest day probably would be Thursday. So welcome and thank you for coming from far away through the snow. It'll be a balmy 45 degrees if you want to get your beach balls later. And so we're happy for that. We are live streaming, I'm told, at this link. If you'd like people at your home institution to see what's going on for the duration of the 3 days, send them this link. For the speakers, if you don't want to be streamed, let us know. Just say something at the podium. Make sure that we turn off the stream, and we'll do that. So now I'd like to thank our sponsors. And again, this was a pleasant surprise on short notice to get such an overwhelming response from sponsors. We're particularly excited by the fact that there are many small companies here and many hardware-related companies. I think that there are representatives from at least some of these sponsors here right now. And so when I call out this sponsor, I'd like the representative to stand up so we can see who you are. And most of the sponsors, I believe, have a display table somewhere. I'm not exactly sure because I think we recently moved it. And during the breaks, you'll have an opportunity to go see those displays. So first, ID Quantique. Are you here? ID Quantique. Photon Spot. I'm not sure I could see, the lights are so bright here. Princeton Instruments. There we go. Thank you. Quantum Design and Single Quantum. One of them is the US representative for the European company. Quantum Opus. SPIE, I don't think they're here. Oh, where? Thank you. Toptica. We have representatives from Toptica. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much. Toptica is our sole platinum sponsor and a local company, and Thor Labs. Okay, once again, thank you to the sponsors for contributing to the cost of this workshop. And as you know, there was no registration fee, and all the meals are provided, so we're very happy with the sponsorship. Thank you very much. Also, I wanted to say thank you to the organizing committee, the people listed here, and to Robin Rose-Chandler, the Senior Staff Assistant for the Future Photon Initiative and the coordinator for the workshop. You saw her out at the registration desk. So a few logistics here. The program and abstracts are online and in the booklet. There's a paper booklet out on the desk. Hopefully you got those. But you can go to the website, the original website you used to register, and if you scroll pretty far down on the bottom, you'll see a listing of all the talks, and now the talk titles are active links. So if you click the talk titles, you'll get the abstracts that are also in the booklet. Posters are in the corridors, I believe, on either side of the hall here. And you can look at the posters during the breaks, during the coffee breaks and lunch. The talks are being recorded, and they'll be made available on the website. If you don't want your talk to be recorded, then let us know. We'll turn off the cameras. There will be two panels. One is a quantum career panel later today, run by Professor Ben Zwickel of RIT. And there's another panel, Quantum Integrated Silicon Photonics, run by Mike Fanto, and I believe that's Friday morning. We'll be giving a lab tour Friday just after lunch. We're having lunch in the Vignelli Gallery, and the tour location is near there, so you won't have to be outside for very long. And as you can see from the schedule, we have a coffee break every morning, a coffee break every afternoon. We have lunch, I believe, in a different location, slightly different location each day, but today and Thursday in this building. We have dinner tonight at Dave & Buster's, and you're getting tokens to play video games as part of the deal. And then we have dinner reception at the Magic Spells Studio soundstage, which is newly opened, and I understand this is their first big event. So we're here to talk about the next quantum revolution, and most of you, I presume, are familiar with this. The quantum 1.0 revolution describes what happened about 100 years ago when scientists first learned the rules of quantum mechanics. And that led years later to the development of devices. And so there's a delay between understanding the theory and then applying it to make devices. And sometimes that delay is due to the inability to fabricate devices in regards to quantum. That could mean the inability to make pristine materials at small enough scales. And so you see the electronics revolution delayed from the understanding of quantum mechanics. And the quantum 2.0 revolution is what's happening now. And this is spurred on by the fact that fabrication and materials are catching up to the original revolution and understanding. And so now we're able to make devices that allow pristine manipulation of the smallest size scales. So as I'm sure you know, Congress passed and the President signed the National Quantum Initiative Act, and Ed White is here to tell us the story about how that came to be, so I won't say a whole lot about it. But that was the watershed moment that convinced us to have this workshop. We do quantum science and technology development here at RIT, and we're interested in being a part of the national effort in developing quantum technologies. Now, in parallel with that act of Congress, the White House released the National Strategic Overview for Quantum Information Science. You can find it at the link at the bottom of this slide. I encourage you to read through that document. It gives a roadmap for how the United States should develop quantum science and technology. I've copied and pasted some of the words here and wanted to share them with you. This is the inside sheet that describes who was part of the effort to draft that document. And at the bottom, it's probably difficult for you to see, but you can take my word for it. There are many federal agencies that are represented. And in fact, I guess I should mention that we had some of these agencies committed to coming here and giving talks, but it turns out there's a little problem with the government being shut down. Some of you might be familiar with it. And so they had to cancel, understandably, and several people stood in to give talks, and so their talks have been replaced. We had NASA, NSF, and NIST. They were very enthusiastic, but they can't travel. So here are some of the words in that white paper document. And up front is choosing a science-first approach to quantum information science. And I've bolded in red some of the words that I thought were interesting. So of course, research programs are fundamental to being able to pursue quantum information science. So that was the big message of the first bullet. And also there's a focus on crossing disciplines. There's a recognition that it can't just be theoretical physicists or even just physicists, that it has to involve engineering and other disciplines. There was a charge to pursue grand challenges. These are big questions that can be solved with quantum information science, and that those big questions are going to drive the need for developing the science. Also, there's a recognition that the quantum workforce is relatively small right now, and as these applications become viable and the technologies are developed, the United States is going to need people who can use those technologies and, for instance, do the engineering do the practical application of quantum science. So, for instance, there might be a job title called quantum engineer. And there's a notion that we need to have programs that exist now and need to be enhanced in order to train a generation of quantum engineers and quantum scientists. This would be done through academia, also through industry. And I thought this was interesting even at the elementary stage. So I'm giving a talk at my daughter's elementary school in a few weeks, and I don't have any quantum in there. And I realized that I'm remiss not to add that, and we need to start now with quantum. She's in 3rd grade. I thought this was interesting also to engage art and media. Art and media are important, obviously, in our culture. We're run by Twitter pretty much these days. And so to engage those disciplines in quantum is going to be important. And also there was a note about tracking the needs and measuring how we're meeting the needs and training the workforce. Industry is going to be a big part of this, as I said, and so there was a call for a U.S. quantum consortium and an increased investment in joint quantum technology research centers. And then a strong connection to end user application spaces. So once again, it can't just be theoretical physics, it has to involve engineering and practical applications. There's a charge to increase the infrastructure, the thinking being that we don't have the current infrastructure to drive all the research that this white paper is calling for. So that involves existing facilities and funding future facilities. Some of you might have seen calls for proposals from NSF already, even before the funding from the NQIA arrives, in order to enhance infrastructure for quantum science. As I understand it, that's a new infusion of interest from NSF, and some of it involves infrastructure. And that includes establishing test bed facilities and manufacturing facilities. And that phrase might remind you of the National Manufacturing Institutes that have been funded over the past 8 years. There's also a call to increase international cooperation, but that's sort of a double-edged sword because elsewhere it mentions ITAR and not sharing information. So there seems to be some words to the effect of figuring out who the United States friends are and who their foes are, and then partnering with the friends. So with that backdrop, I met with the RIT president, provost, the vice president for research, Ryan Raffelli, and some of the deans to start a new initiative at RIT to develop quantum technology. And that received a warm reception. And the Future Photon Initiative is leading that effort. I'm the director of the Future Photon Initiative. FPI is an internally funded initiative that leverages our capability in photonics for a broad array of applications. This quantum initiative is one particular initiative within the FPI. Our other main initiative involves our involvement in AIM Photonics. So we're advancing photonics to solve big problems in areas like energy generation, information, communication, quantum, astrophysics, the early universe. Any device that manipulates a photon in any way is interesting to us. So that means detectors that detect photons and light sources and waveguides. And in particular, we're interested in the lowest levels of photons. So single photon generation, single photon detection, single photon transmission. And as I said, we were formed in part in recognition of our involvement in AIM Photonics. We have 20 professors in 5 colleges, and there are 80 personnel in total, including students. There's a listing of the colleges. And the goal of our quantum technology initiative is to develop a significant research program in quantum technologies at RIT, leverage our existing capabilities, for instance, in fabrication and packaging, leverage our relationships and strengthen relationships, form new relationships. And also, this is a particularly important point for RIT is to develop the innovative academic programs that give real applied experiences to undergraduate students. From our perspective, our students should come out of RIT being active, able participants in the ground floor of creating technology. So you should be able to put them on the factory floor or in the prototype floor, and they should be producing on day one. And if they're not, then we haven't succeeded. And also propose a quantum research center that's called for in the NQIA. Here are some of the grand challenges we like to think about. I'm an astrophysicist by training, so I like aliens and want to know what they look like. So we're working on a project called Breakthrough Starshot. Some of you might have heard about that. We're attempting to develop the imager for that application, which we want to fly by the nearest star and hopefully a habitable planet, and then hopefully image, maybe not an alien unless they're looking directly at our camera, but maybe on the size scale of cities, so we could detect civilization. Backing off that, maybe we would just be able to detect ozone and methane, which would be a biosignature and other biosignatures. Anyway, that's a real application, and it's being funded now. There are other biophotonic applications. There are national security applications. Of course, the big quantum application that perhaps you're most familiar with is the development of a quantum computer. That's also a grand challenge. Here are the principles of the Future Photon Initiative at RIT. I've bolded in red the professors who are going to be speaking. Mishkat Bhattacharya, Don Feiger, that's me. Ed Hock will be speaking. Stefan Preble, who most of you probably know. Roger Remington is the director of the Vignelli Design Center, and so he's not a scientist or an engineer, but we're going to be having lunch in his gallery on Friday, so I asked him to say a few words. And Ben Zwickel is internationally recognized as an expert in workforce development for technology. Here are the subunits in the FPI. You'll be seeing some of these. There's the Center for Detectors. As it sounds, they're interested in detecting light. I'm the director of the Center for Detectors. We have 6 professors. The Integrated Photonics Group, which is Stefan Preble's group. Nanopower Research Labs, which is Seth Hubbard's group. Seth is right here. And the list goes on. You'll be seeing maybe half of these when we take a tour. So that's all I have for now. I'm sure I've left some things out. Speakers each have 30 minutes, 25 minutes for a talk, and 5 minutes for questions. We have people who are going to run around with microphones for those of you who have questions. Wait for the microphones. The session chairs will give the speakers an indication that they have 5 minutes left, and then after 25 minutes, the session chair will stand up. So before I move on, I want to see if there are any questions now. It's hard for me to see with the bright lights. Okay.